Right. This is the beginning of Esoteric Astrology Adventure 147C on page 630, and we are talking about the way the third ray Lord, or the third ray being, has to discover itself in that which is not itself, and how this sense of discovery operates in three stages. First, to transmute sense into knowledge, and then to transmute knowledge into wisdom, and then the third point, the stage wherein wisdom is transmuted into omniscience. And you know, as I told you earlier, I used to think that omniscience was only related to the second ray and omnipresence to the third, but there's a sense in which we can actually reverse these. The stage wherein wisdom is transmuted into omniscience, and both consciousness and form are superseded by the one who exists. This is the perception. The superseding of consciousness and form, and the recognition of the One, the Blessed One, really. All is illusion, O dweller in the shadows. Come forth into the light of day. Display the hidden glory of the Blessed One, the glory of the one and only. The glory and the truth will rapidly destroy that which has veiled the truth. The prisoner can go free. The rending of the blinding veil, the clear pronouncing of the truth, and practice right will render to the Blessed One that golden thread, which will provide release from all the maze of earth existence. So, behind that veil of Maya I stand, the Blessed One, but unrevealed. We are looking for the true Blessed One, who is more than consciousness and more than form. He is the being itself. So this consciousness and form are superseded by the one who exists, who is conscious, but who remains as greater, than either of these two phases of divine life. The question for every ray type is, how do you arrive at being? The quest for every ray type is, how do you arrive at being? And here we've seen a method of transmutation from sense to knowledge to wisdom to omniscience. So we can say that for the being on the third ray, we move from sense to knowledge to wisdom to omniscience. And I think we begin to see that some of these terms relate to the second ray as well. The one wills to incarnate, wills to know, wills to be conscious, but is none of these phases essentially, having realized them prior to manifestation. The one is the one, and needs to extricate himself from the many, or from identification with the many. This third ray will is the producer of external synthesis in successive stages, carried forward from temporary syntheses until there is complete unification between consciousness and form, and later complete at-one-ment realized between that which is neither consciousness nor form, but the creator of both, and the relating principle of spirit matter. It's interesting to consider spirit matter as a relating principle. The third ray is the producer of external synthesis, the outer glory, as it were. the organization, things coming together in right relationship on the physical plane. It needs the other rays of attribute to fine-tune these externalizations, but generally it moves towards externalization. The third ray is the producer of the external synthesis in successive stages, of course, because not all at once, because Saturn rules. Third ray, Saturn. Carried forward from temporary syntheses until there is complete unification between consciousness and form. The forms are fully conscious. Consciousness is unobstructed in the form. And later complete at one-ment realized between that, which is neither consciousness or form, but the creator of both, and the relating principle of spirit matter. So there is that, and there is the relating principle of spirit matter, and these two are at one in a third ray consummation. So there is that, and there is spirit matter. Spirit matter, I suppose, is in a way, well, in a way it's soul. It's a blend. It's the, from spirit and matter united arises consciousness. Consciousness is the relating principle. But he must have a reason for calling it spirit matter here. When spirit and matter connect, then we do have consciousness, as we have oft been told. It will be seen how the above definition shows the function of the third ray to be the will to initiate on the physical plane that which will express divinity. So what's he doing here? He's reminding us of the three aspects of the will, and one is initiation, conditioning. Those three are put together. Fulfilling and conquering. So we have the will to initiate on the physical plane, that which will express divinity, because there is the manifestational aspect of the third ray. It does move towards the creation of outer form. It has some connection with Aries here, even though Capricorn is the sign through which the third ray comes in that first ray triangle. So the will to initiate on the physical plane that which will express divinity, the great architect of the universe. Architecture produces the outer forms which will house divinity, building the temple of humanity, building the proper form, properly attuned, properly refined, properly transmuted, transformed on the outer plane, so that it can contain and express divinity, or that. So outer form must express that. That it defines not only appearance, but the revelation of that quality of which the appearance is the effect or result. And that inherent in these two propositions lies the third, which states that this creative will, that's really what he's calling this now, is not only the cause of manifestation and the guarantee of achievement, it is also the proof. There's the outer demonstration. How shall I therefore demonstrate this truth? The proof of the potency of that life which ever defeats and annihilates death. So we seem to be, looking here at the will that conquers death, the will which conquers death. And so it's the will to initiate. Now, I think in this paragraph he's giving us all the three types of will we need to discuss. the will to initiate on the physical plane that which will express divinity, that it defines not only appearance, but the revelation of that quality of which the appearance is the effect or the result. So the revelation of quality through appearance, and that inherent in these two propositions lies the third, which states that this creative will is not only the cause of manifestation, because it is the specific action leading to manifestation, and the guarantee of achievement, which is the, what do we have here, the will to fulfillment, don't we? Because in achievement is achievement and fulfillment are equivalent. But is also the proof of the potency of that life which ever defeats and annihilates death. The greater than any form is that life. The forms can come forth, but the life is seen and known as superior, and that from which all form came. Of course, the sixth-ray type has to die not for outer forms, and the third ray nor be deceived by that which disappears, form. So we come back to our initial proposition of that divine trinity of life, quality, and appearance, considered in the opening pages of Volume 1, thus also to the creativity of the three major rays. So they all have creativity. All have the will to create. I wonder if I can do this. To create. I'm going to add that, if you don't mind. Will to create, CR, and we'll call it the will to create. They all have that. But especially, this is the third ray type, the creative type, and all the other kinds of creativity of the fourth ray, seventh ray, and so forth come under it. Thus, also to the creativity of the... So, we come back to our initial proposition of that divine trinity of life, quality, appearance, considered in the opening pages of Volume 1, and also to the creativity of the three major rays. Thus to their basic relation, and thus to their enduring and persistent synthesis. They are the rays of aspect, they are the trinity. These three are always one. The circle of revelation is rounded out, the cycle is completed. The serpent of matter and the serpent of wisdom and the serpent of life are seen to be one. And maybe we're talking of the movement of the three. There seem to be one whole, and behind the three stands the eternal dragon, forever spawning forth the triple serpent, forever saying, "Go forth and come thou back." Thus speaks the old commentary in reference to the matter. So let's put these down to help remember them better. There is the eternal, well, make this in red. Okay. The eternal dragon, then the serpent of life, the serpent of wisdom, and the serpent of matter. The word life here, I suppose, is not meaning essential being, but is having more to do with the power of the will. And the eternal dragon is the great being himself, the great being who functions through life, quality, and appearance. stands the eternal dragon, forever spawning forth the triple serpent, the triple type of movement, the triple serpent who moves in three ways: progress onward, spiral cyclic motion, and rotary motion. Progress onward, and we can put also what's called driving forward through space. And they go out in their movements. Perhaps there is the straight serpent in some of the old images from the ancient religions. You see occasionally the straight serpent. Probably represents more the first ray. Then you see the spiral cyclic coiling serpent. Then you see the serpent swallowing his own tail, the third ray of rotary motion. They had a way of describing these things which spoke to the intuition and which could veil from the unready the truth of the situation. Three words are concerned with this triple manifestation, the triple manifestation of the serpent of life, of wisdom and matter: attraction, subtraction, and abstraction. I hope he'll explain these. And these three are related, as far as man is concerned, to the first three initiations, but only from the will aspect and in relation definitely to the third ray upon the physical plane, or rather on the plane of the etheric body or the vital effective activity. It is this which must be borne in mind when considering the active work of the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Well, are these in order? Abstraction, let's see. I think maybe we have it. So, abstraction equals, well, not really, but relates to the serpent of life. Attraction to the serpent of wisdom, and subtraction to the serpent of matter. And basically, we have to subtract away matter from consciousness, or subtract, to delete from consciousness the encumbrance of matter. At least this is how I'm interpreting it at the moment. So, to delete from consciousness the burden of matter, which clogs perception and prevents freedom. But attraction gradually draws the life into the realm of wisdom, the realm of the soul, and from there it becomes possible to abstract the life from the form. But still, for the third ray, for the third ray being, it must discover itself in that which is not itself. So all of this must transpire while still within the world of matter form. How does DK say it here? 3 words are concerned with this triple manifestation of the triple serpents that the eternal dragon ever spawns forth. One's reminded here of the green dragon. And these 3 are related as far as man is concerned to the first 3 initiations. Let's see how we can do that, but only from the will aspect, not from the consciousness aspect. In other words, what actually happens. So subtraction, let's call this, from the burden of matter. Maybe I'll write it here. The initiation of subtraction, subtract the dense physical vehicle from the etheric nature, and cultivate the etheric nature, the etheric vehicle, as that which can carry the higher energies rather than the instinctive energies. Attract is the second, let's call it the, initiation of attraction. At least I'm working it out this way. The initiation of attraction via the, let's just say, love is attracted into the astral body, and aspiration for the soul love exists. So let's just say in an easy way that soul and form are attracted to each other and are fusing. The initiation of abstraction, the soul knows itself upon its own plane and can remove itself from the lower planes, but can also function expressively in form. So there is no withdrawal from the outer world, in which the being must recognize itself in that which is not itself. Let's go back here, because I think he said, only for the third ray is this really working. These 3 are related as far as man is concerned from the will to the first 3 initiations. What happens? The will aspect. It is about what happens rather than what one experiences. It's about arrangement. Within the vehicles. So, and in relation definitely to the third ray upon the physical plane, because in these initiations we have to stay on the physical plane. This is certainly so for the third ray type. In these initiations we stay on the physical plane and must show their influence on the physical plane, or rather on the plane of the etheric body, or on the vital effective activity. Each time, I suppose, each time the etheric body carries higher energies and is more vitally charged. It is this which must be borne in mind when considering the active work of the Trinity, the abstractive Father, the attractive Son, and the Holy Spirit, which manages to subtract itself from the leftovers of the previous solar system in the terms of dense physical matter. At least I offer a possibility. The Trinity in manifestation knows itself as the transcending reality, and utters ever the word. Having pervaded this whole universe with a fragment of myself, I remain. So the sense of being in matter, and note that phrase, as it is said, being in matter or being in matter, is strong with the third ray type. Interesting that this is a third ray statement. It does involve the one in the many. So there is also a third ray function of the solar angel, who says this: having pervaded the universe of the causal body with a fragment of myself, I remain. Or having pervaded the universe of gathered material on the higher mental plane and thus creating a causal body, I remain. The Trinity in manifestation, I think, we have some real keywords here. And we have to study them very carefully until these words really begin to sink in, and we can actually, instead of being confused, we can discriminate between the functions of these different aspects, the different lords of the rays expressing their will, until they are no longer meaningless abstractions to us, but begin to be sensed as realities functioning behind the scenes. Having pervaded this whole universe with a fragment of myself, I remain. So, if you think about it, this saying is an example of emanation. Manation, M-emanation. And this suggests that emanation is a third ray process of extension of the one into the many. The one becoming the many through emanation. So I don't think I ever thought before about the third rayness of this ancient idea. And I suppose, any form that we create magically, here we are, but with a fragment of myself I pervade that form. And so am in the form, and so am really that form. The Trinity in manifestation knows itself as the transmitting one, and says through the words of the Christ, I, if I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me. This through the attractive power which the transmitting one transmits. Well, can we speak of attraction when speaking of the third ray? I'm remembering back here that the second ray expressed that which drew the pairs of opposites together. The second ray being expressed that which drew the pairs of opposites together. Here, it's like casting your line out, Emanation goes forth, and emanation returns. We express ourselves in matter, and as we rise, we draw upwards the matter, I should say matter form, in which we express ourselves. It's like casting in fishing. You throw that line out there. It's a part of yourself. It anchors I suppose, in the fish. Or let's just say that the fish can play with it for quite a while, but eventually the fish is drawn in. So whatever the fragment has pervaded is uplifted, drawn in. Whatever the fragment has pervaded is uplifted. Of course, DK also used this to relate to the idea of magnetism, telling us about the power of the first ray, using this same sentence, and saying that basically the first ray is the producer of magnetism, even as electric current is the producer of magnetism. The Trinity in manifestation knows itself as the transmitting one, but always in manifestation. That's the key. There is no escape. No escape from manifestation. And there's, it's anchored. And the thing about the third ray, no, I can't do that. With the third ray, whatever of the higher worlds can be known must be known in the presence of the lower worlds. So the application of the higher to the lower is a discipline. It's a Saturnian thing through which the third ray types have to pass. They cannot run away from the world. They have to learn everything in the midst of the world. So learning about spirit soul in the midst of circumstance, Saturn. So I, if I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me. It's almost like putting down a thread and seeing who attaches itself to that thread, or attaching the thread to something and then retracting. So putting forth and retracting, this is what the process is, one of putting forth a thread and then retracting it along with all whom the thread has influenced. All right, this Trinity in manifestation, he does, get into a bit of a litany here, and I think it's good for the sake of memory. Knows itself to be the transforming agent. Through the voice of the many chants, and through the voice of the many, chants the words, glory to God in the highest, on earth peace, goodwill to men. Glory, peace, and the will to good being the effects of the wow, it's wonderful how he weaves this together. The transmitted life of the transcendent one. You just get the sense of Master DK being a word master, wielding such careful and accurate thought on the abstract planes, and hopefully stimulating our abstract minds so that we can somewhat appreciate what he is saying. Knows itself to be the transforming agent through the voice, and through the voice of the many chants the words. In other words, affecting the creative sound which emanates from the, or which is expressed by the many. And so this happens when intelligence is induced in the many and expressed through the throat center. We're told how the third ray type has to work with the sound, work with rendering the teaching vocal, or rendering the vision vocal. The throat center is here. Chants the words through the many, which they can appreciate, then, due to the increased intelligence and perception which has been inculcated in them, glory to God in the highest, on earth peace, goodwill to men. So the chanting takes place below, takes place in the three lower worlds. Glory, the light, peace, see, glory, the mental glory, and the will to good. Well, on what level is this will to good? The glory is the radiation through form, the radiation of a great light through the existent form. Peace, a condition of the astral body, but also of right economy and sharing. And the will to good, being the effects of the transmitted life, the transcendent one. So glory, peace, and the will to good being the effects of the transmitted life of the transcendent one. And these are effects, effects in the world of effects. In the world of effects, effects in the lower worlds of customary manifestation. So I guess the thing that I'm getting out of this is be heavenly on earth. Because the third-ray being must prove the high within the low. You know, it's almost like the seventh ray in a sense, but in a way the seventh ray is a reflection of the third ray. The highest and the lowest meet. But there is activity, there is a demonstration. How can I therefore demonstrate this truth? What shall I do? I wander in illusion. This is the, speaking of that high third ray being the third ray monad working through the stanza of the Blessed One, and he wants to, my energy is great and through my mind I can, what does he say? Through my mind I can something demonstrate about reality. My energy is great. Let me just find that. My energy is great. My energy, and through my mind I can display the glory of divinity. That's it. Okay, came back to me. I can display the glory of divinity. How can I therefore demonstrate this truth? What shall I do? I wander in illusion. You know how it is that third-ray types always have to bring it out onto the outer plane and prove it on the outer plane. Just the way the triple sign Scorpio, without much third ray, has to do. So, prove this. Prove divinity on the outer plane. What are your demonstrations? What are your proofs? How do you show forth subjectivity through form? So it is related to expression, and the will to evolve, the will to educate, the adaptation of the form so it can demonstrate the inner glory. The adaptation of the form so that it can demonstrate the inner glory. Peace is a function of balance, and we look then at Atma, Libra, balance, and Saturn, the third ray, as Libra is constellationally transmitting the third ray. So the creation of balance and peace are very close together, and in a way emanate from the spiritual will of the Libran Saturnian atmic plane. Finally, at the end of the age, it knows itself as the transfigured one. Is it transfigured or transfiguring? I'll just ask that question. Do we have the transfigured one or the transfiguring one? And realizes that the paean of the angels, glory to God in the highest, is the enunciation of its ultimate perfection, a great display of light. Well, that's no good. I wouldn't want that, would I? Okay. Can you imagine all that being erased? But fortunately we have methods to retrieve it now. So we have a great display of glory. Interesting how Ray 6 and Ray 3 both concern glory. And at the third initiation, the third initiation, the Christ was glorified before them. So this great display of light through form is connected with the third ray. Of course, also with Vulcan, interestingly. Vulcan has no third ray. And the ray 6 type is always seeking for glory. It's the ray 6 is the quest after glory. At the end of the age, well, it seems that, in this pattern of energy descent, the transfiguration is the last of the four sequenced activities, or are they activities? I'll just avoid it by saying the last of the fourfold sequence to be activated. First, there must be from the transcending one, there must be a communication of its nature to the transmitting life. But there is a transmission even from the transcendent one. This tells us something. That which is the transcendent one has to reach the further transmitting one. So that which is the quality of the transcendent one must be transmitted or communicated to the transmitting one. There's a few little things to be worked out there because, as I said, at one point the monad was, in the first ray, being was said to be related to the transmitting one. Then the monad of our planetary logos, and the soul aspect, the second ray, to the transforming one, and the third aspect or personality to the transfiguring one. Well, there is a big change of personality quality at the third initiation. It is the personality that becomes transfigured. It's beyond its customary form and figure. Maybe it finds the cosmic ethers. I'll just put it anywhere. Maybe the personality finds the cosmic ethers at the third degree. Finding these ethers is a transfiguration. Well, we have to correlate the numbers. It's very necessary to get the hints, because so much occurs because of numerical resonance. Can more be said anent this subject? Well, it depends on who you're talking to, doesn't it? Master DK, of course, is talking to us, and we have very limited capacity to absorb. Can more be said anent this subject? The major rays of aspect embody the entire story. The minor rays of attribute contribute the detail in process and enterprise. So we have looked at this in the large and general view, with more to be added by the rays of attribute. They are conditioned by the three major rays. It is not therefore my intention to take up the analysis of the four remaining triangles. It's a bit like the technique of fusion, you know. What is it? The first and fifth ray use the isolated unity, and the second, fourth, and sixth ray souls use inclusive reason, and the third and seventh ray use presented attributes. There is a relation between the third and the seventh ray. Usually the seventh is related to the first ray, but the seventh ray has so much to present on the outer plane and put into good form that it is fitting that it refine the presentational tendencies of the third ray and make sure that it's not just rough and crude and not too well adapted to the physical plane. So they are conditioned by the three major rays. It is not therefore my intention to take up the analysis of the four remaining rays, but of course he could. I have indicated enough in this treatise to enable the interested student to work out for himself their subjective theme. Well, okay, then it can be done, and a good assignment in the new esoteric schools is to work out the three modes of will and the four realizations, transcending, transmitting, transforming, and figuring, for the four triangles of attribute. I was wondering where they went, but it can be done. So he says, I've taught you enough, now do this yourself. But it would be a project. I won't even try to say what might be done. One would have to study so carefully what he said about the will aspect of the of those four rays, of all the seven rays, but he's worked out for us the first three. This would be a project, and maybe we would have some hints about it from the fact that rays 1 and 2 together make ray 4, ray 1 and 3 together make ray 5, ray 2 and 3 together make ray 6, and a balance of 1, 2, and 3 make ray 7. See, so we'd have to talk about, for instance, how the will of the fifth ray being conditions life or initiates, or how the fifth ray being uses the will to fulfillment. What is the consummation there? How the fifth ray being conquers death. Well, that'd be pretty straightforward. Wouldn't be too difficult, because there's this great liberation through light and knowledge, the scientific overcoming of the negation, and the limitation of consciousness we call death. Yes, it could be done. I'm tempted, but at the same time I think it's important to leave us something to do in the future, and maybe if I have time and real concentrated thought. I don't think I could do it in this kind of format where you have to think on your feet all the time. Some ideas would come up, but they might not be as well organized as they could be. How the sixth-ray being conditions life and initiates, how the sixth-ray being brings fulfillment, some sort of union with the desire and the desired, how the sixth-ray being conquers death, perhaps through some sort of flaming devotion. Of course, I left out the fourth-ray being. Very, very difficult to understand the fourth ray, how closely related to death it is. And when you go to those stanzas that the fourth ray Lord speaks to all of his brothers, they are not easy to understand. Not easy at all. What the fourth ray is the ray of the intuition, and intuition is the word of cultivation. So I think he's written words from the old commentary, or the old commentary is written in such a way that the intuition is required. There's such an alchemical process going on as one tries to fuse all the knowledge presented into wisdom, and to carry wisdom further so it becomes true omniscience within a limited sphere. Let's be realistic. We're not going to have, galactic omniscience tomorrow. But upon the planet, maybe within the solar system, in time, omniscience can prevail. I will, however, consider briefly the three constellations connected with the third ray. Their significance is relatively clear. Cancer, this is the constellation which symbolizes the will of the mass, which conditions the mass response and mass psychology. Well, at one point he was talking about the will towards liberation of the mass, will towards freedom, will towards light. But always there is the lower grouping. It's kind of a sheepfold of the blind. The eyes of the sheep are not too good anyway. So this is just millions upon millions of people if we consider our Earth and humanity. This has not yet been the theme of astrological study, for it connotes far more than the mass consciousness. Yes, he has talked about the positive qualities, the rising aspirations of the mass, and the yearning for light and freedom. It is basically the focusing of the mass will through the medium of the mass consciousness, such will as it is, a thing unknown as yet. But public opinion, I was going to say, it looks like public opinion. A thing unknown as yet, though the rudiments of this knowledge can be seen in that peculiar factor in the life of humanity we call public opinion. I mean, when public opinion reaches a, what can we call it, critical mass, then it is as if a great will moves things according to the nature of that public opinion. This is now being brought into the educational field through what is it propaganda? What's commonly called propaganda, propagating a certain point of view which can mobilize the will, to mobilize the desire and will of the mass, to mobilize the desire and later the will of the mass. I'm wondering, if an electorate can force a candidate to withdraw by having the opinion that the candidate is unworthy. There is a pressure of the thought of the many. And if we can call it will, I think he does a little bit. Focusing the mass will. Not a very high type of will, but it is the will towards a particular outcome. The implications will be clear to you. A trained and enlightened public opinion formed through the use of radio, TV, the voice, etc., is an unknown thing on a worldwide scale. There is public opinion, but it's often under the spell of ignorance. So, let's just say public opinion is often subject to ignorance and violent emotion, whipped up by demagogues. We see it happening all the time. Out of public opinion, which is the focused expression of the growth of mass consciousness, will emerge the mass will to good, inherent in every individual, and for this humanity must work and wait. So it's almost like Leo and Vulcan must do their task. The emergence of the individual, or at least greater intelligence in the mass, and Vulcan, the will, related to the moon closely. And so it's the impressive power of the will of the mass to put pressure in the direction of the change desired. So the will of the mass directs pressure towards that which is desired. I'm looking at Egypt these days. It's tremendous when you get millions of people together animated by a single desire. Of course, there are opposing camps of millions against millions. And it has to do with which is the stronger of the contending desires. This we don't know yet. As it stands here on August 1st, 2013, but we will know. We will know what will prevail. But the will of the mass really is asserting itself in a dramatic fashion, which is rending the country. So it has a very important, its outcome is very important for the Middle East and for the world. Just a little deviation, which is topical temporal, if this is ever listened to, and 10 years from now, or who knows, all that will have passed, and the outcome will have been made clear. But at the moment, those are the contending forces. The mass will to good is a wonderful term, and it needs the cultivation of the men and women of goodwill. The goodwill of the mass must be encouraged before the will to good of the mass can be expected to emerge. Okay. Now, he's not saying a whole lot, really, here, is he? Not a lot. Just enough, perhaps. Libra, this constellation, as you know, connotes the point of balance in the long relationship and interplay between the pairs of opposites. It indicates the will to express. Now that is a seventh ray aspect of the will to expression, and it's the seventh sign, but it carries so much of the third ray. This is the seventh type of will of the 7. The will to express in perfect proportion and harmony, thus harmlessly, right, both the life of the spirit and the potency of matter. So there is here a completed point of view which leads, or which is an aspect of harmlessness. He's not taking a lot of time here. We could see, he's giving us certain types of will. The will to save was definitely stated in Pisces. The will to express here in Libra. The will of the mass expressed in Cancer. So I think it will be important for us to gather, important to gather the different kinds of will which work out through the zodiacal constellations. This is a sign which is peculiarly related to the three worlds and to the three aspects as they express themselves in form: law, sex, and money. And it is useful in skill in action. Let's put it like this. If skill in action, right? If the great third ray, TRD, third ray being, is to express, is to discover itself in that which is not itself, then the skillful and harmonious manipulation and adaptation of matter form is required. The reduction of friction is required. How well and skillfully do we handle our environment? That is a question. So Libra often has a considerable social success and may be adept in seeing the being in the not self, or let's call it the self in the not self, because under Libra these two come into a true balance. So both should be quite visible. Anyway, he hasn't said so much. We can expand upon this if we wish. He'll say more about Capricorn. Well, you know what I have to do here. I'll keep going a bit, perhaps, but this is the end of Esoteric Astrology Adventure 147C. 147C, page 632. We're getting close. And beginning of Esoteric Astrology Adventure number 147. Do I dare do that? Well, I'll, as you see here, I've changed it to 148A. I have 3 programs in this particular file, and it's getting late. What began at 5 is ending at 2 a.m., so it's a long time. I probably look at 2. Anyway, we have just a little bit more to go tomorrow. We go to page 635. Well, we're almost there. Really almost there. But I think that, one wants to be able to think in terms of summation before getting into the index or the appendix. The appendix is a tremendous collection of things, and maybe it will serve to help us synthesize what we've studied over these, on and off, over these last 2 years and 4 months, approximately. Now, it's just about what it is, 2 years and 4 months, with some big spaces in between. What might one have been able to do if one could work regularly on this many hours a day? But that was not possible, given the outer life. So, what I'll suggest then is that we come back to this tomorrow, try to finish this off and see whether it's possible to get into the appendix. Some of what's in the appendix we have already treated, but it's listed quite topically, and so should be a good synthetic exercise. What we've been doing here now is dealing with the third ray and how the initiating, fulfilling, and destroying, conquering will works, how the recognition of that being as a transcending will, transmitting will, transforming will, transfiguring will operates, and then through the 3 signs. And I wonder if we could find, as I say, I feel inclined to figure out how the 3 aspects of will can work through each one of the signs. I suppose there's a tendency to organize the 3 constellations so that each one of them receives one of the 3 aspects of will. Either, what we call it, creating, conditioning, initiating, that's the first aspect. He keeps on using different words. He combines them, it seems. Then fulfilling. I mean, what would a Libran fulfillment look like? How could this will to fulfillment, what's a third ray consummation as it works through Libra? See, I'll just say it like this. Under the will to fulfillment, what is a third ray fulfillment like when, excuse me, what is a third ray fulfillment like when it expresses itself through all 3 third ray constellations? What is a Cancerian fulfillment like? What is a Libran fulfillment like? What is a Capricornian fulfillment like? See, we can bring these 3 aspects of the will down into the signs because the will be expressed through the ray, but it has to travel through the signs too. What will a conquest be like? Is there any way in which the will that conquers death can apply to all 3 signs, or does it just apply to one of them? But it does have an astrological application. What about the will which conditions life, or conditions the manifestation of life, or which initiates new circumstances through which life can express? What will that be like when it works through these 3 third ray constellations? And we could go back, of course, and ask that same kind of question about the 3 types of will as they work through the love-wisdom being, the will that conquers death in Gemini, the will that initiates and conditions in Gemini, the will that seeks fulfillment in Gemini. Can we use those three aspects of the will in every one of the second ray lords of constellations? We certainly can when it comes to the first ray constellations, because somehow, although we do rather divide, let's say, the will that conditions and that initiates, we give it to Aries, and the will to fulfillment we give to Leo, and the will that conquers death we give to Capricorn. There's a way in which those three aspects of the will can be related to every one of those zodiacal constellations. Well, this is the work that we have to do for ourselves. Master DK said, look, I'm not going to give you this working pattern for all of the triangles of attribute, the triangles for the rays of attribute. You work it out for yourself, he said. Well, I guess that's what the new esoteric schools are for. And there will come a time when the students of those schools will really not only educate themselves, but produce something of real value for society, which will be a testimony to the reality of the spiritual hierarchy. That's what we need. When people say, well, you know, look at that person. That person is trained in something. That person can do something. That person is radiating. How did that happen? And then they will be witness to the hierarchy. They will express the hierarchy and reveal the hierarchy, just as later they will express the monad and reveal the monad. All right, well, tomorrow morning, it's after 2 now, I'll see if there is time to finish the last couple of pages of this book, and then, well, of course, it would be nice if it was over, but ahead looms this very interesting appendix, which is filled with secret doctrine references, and those are never easy. So just another 60 pages after this. And for the time being, we will say good night, good morning. In whatever year you may be listening to this, however few you may be. And we'll move on tomorrow. So, farewell. See you then.